Society Matters.
Hello, I'm Bernie Furshpan, host of Raised by Survivors here on HMTV at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. Thanks so much for joining me. I have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Shelly Piekny Smolar.
Thanks for having me, Bernie.
It's been a while,
It has.
but we're picking up where we left off. And where we're picking up is a podcast.
Very nice. I'm glad to do this.
Who would think that we'd be doing a podcast? You know me for at least maybe 12 to 15 years,
Yeah, at least.
right? And you know me from the Metropolitan Room,
That's right.
which was the original Gotham Comedy Club that Joanne and I ran. And you came to see some shows. We became good friends. We had a mutual friend. We had a couple of mutual friends,
Yes.
actually.
Yes, we did.
You were good friends with Ian Finkel.
Yes, I was.
He and his brother and his dad were incredible characters. His brother is still around, and he still performs. Five-ish Finkel was his dad, and people know him from television.
Yes, my mother used to talk about him all the time, the Jewish actor.
Yeah, the Jewish actor.
Yeah.
He was like the iconic Jewish actor. And we've maintained this friendship, and we have a lot in common.
We do.
We both are second-generation survivors of the Holocaust. And there's got to be some kind of connections that we have. I'm sure of it.
There is. Don't forget, we're both twins.
Oh, that's another connection right there.
Yes.
And so you grew up with your sister or brother?
I have a brother.
Okay, so I'm also a fraternal twin. You grew up in Brooklyn,
I grew up in Brooklyn.
just
yes.
like me. Another thing we have in common. I think twin second-generation Holocaust survivors thrive in Brooklyn. We thrived in Brooklyn.
It was a Jewish ghetto. That's
was.
what they called it. It was Brownsville, Brooklyn, Jewish ghetto.
Uh-huh. When did you find out that your parents were survivors? Do you remember when you found out?
I think I knew it my whole life, but when I was old enough to realize it, we were 9 months old when we came here.
Okay.
So my parents used to talk about it all the time.
Right. And when you say you came here from where?
We came here from a displaced persons camp in Germany.
Got
We
it.
were born in Bergen-Belsen in the displaced persons camp.
Oh, okay.
And background is that my father had been married previously, and his wife was taken away by the Nazis. And my mother had been married previously, and her husband and child, she had a 5-year-old child, a son, who was taken away by the Nazis. And then my parents met in the DP camp. And I guess the story is that, everybody was lonely and they were looking for companionship.
Yes.
So they met, they got married, and then they had my brother and me.
Did you know that the DP camps in Germany had the highest birth rate in the world at that time?
I didn't know that, but I did know, though, my mother once told us that my brother and I were the first twins to come over from the DP camps.
Wow.
And when we found that out, we were older already when we found that out. And my brother and I, she said that it was posted in the Forward, which was a Jewish newspaper. So my brother and I actually took a trip down to the Forward offices, hoping that we would be able to get a copy of that article. But at that time, there were no records, so they didn't have it anymore. We were a little disappointed about that.
Yeah. My father was in Munich in a DP camp called Florenwald. And he had some memories, some fond memories. He told me he was in an orphanage.
Oh,
He misunderstood really where he was.
okay.
It wasn't an orphanage, it was a DP camp
Right.
where they rehabilitated the refugees and the orphans, but it wasn't an orphanage. He ended up in Israel, and then he brought me and my twin brother and my mom to Brooklyn in the early 1960s.
Right. So we arrived in 1949. And we didn't go through Ellis Island. Ellis Island actually was closed at that time. I think they were renovating it or whatever. So we came we came straight to New York.
I see. Right to the harbor.
Right to the harbor, yes. And my mother had an aunt who sponsored us, got us an apartment, and got my father a job. My father was an electrician. So we were all set.
Right.
But it was the third floor walk up on Sutter Avenue in Brownsville, Brooklyn. And we lived there until we were almost 13.
Do you have good memories growing up in Brooklyn?
I didn't really know any difference. You know, it was just growing up. Went to school. We went to school.
Public school.
Went to public school, but I have to say that we were bullied. We were bullied.
As Jewish kids?
As Jewish kids. We were called Makis.
Okay, I never heard that before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were called Makis. And we were made fun of because my parents didn't really speak English too well. And I didn't speak English until I went to kindergarten. So that was my first experience with learning English. Oh. And then my parents went to school to learn English also. But they had very heavy accents, and we were made fun of a lot.
So you were made fun of when you were small. As you got older, got into the high school years, was it a little different?
High school was different because at that point already I mastered English. So I guess my friends really didn't know my background too much. But high school, I loved high school. For me, that was a social area.
Right.
Because I didn't have much of a social life growing up. My parents actually, they would get together with other survivors and sit down and have the tea and cookies and whatever, and my brother and I would be sent into another room. But we would overhear a lot of the conversation. But this is what they talked about, their experiences.
So Shelly, when did you first meet your husband? Tell me a little bit about that.
I met my husband when I was in college. My mother had a job working in a publishing company, and she would give me summer jobs while I was in college. And my husband had just come out of the Army, and my mother actually said to me, she says, "There's a very nice young man that works upstairs. Why don't you go meet him?" And I did. Went up. I found out that it was his birthday. So at lunchtime, I went out. I bought a cupcake with a candle, and I came back, and I sang happy birthday to him, and the rest is just history.
Now, both of your parents obviously were survivors. Now, your husband, was he also? Did he have parents that were survivors?
No, his mother was American. His father was European, was Polish also, but his father had escaped to Cuba.
I see.
Before the war.
Oh, before the war.
Before the war.
Over the years, I realized that a lot of survivors moved to communities where there were other survivors. They had this affinity to stick together.
Right.
And was that the case with your parents?
Absolutely. That's why I said it was called the Jewish ghetto, because that's what they talked about.
Did they go to the Catskills? Did they bring you up to the Catskills?
We certainly did.
You did?
We went every year.
I think they all did.
Every year we went to the bungalow colonies.
And the Finkels, they performed there, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Anybody else in your community that went up there to perform? There was a lot of talent.
Yeah, but
a lot of Jewish talent that went up there.
Yeah, we didn't personally know any of them.
Right, other than the Finkels.
Right.
So, you grew up, in Brooklyn. Did you move out of Brooklyn at any point?
When we were just right before my brother's bar mitzvah, we moved to. My parents bought their first house, and we moved to East Flatbush.
Oh, okay.
So we lived on Troy Avenue, and right near Wingate High School, which is where I went.
Oh, okay. So I grew up off Utica.
Okay.
It's not too far from there, I don't think.
Well, did you go to Winthrop Junior High School?
I went to Marine Park Junior High School.
Okay.
And James Madison High School.
All right. I went to Winthrop Junior High School and Wingate High School.
Wingate. That's a good school, I hear.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
At that time.
Yeah. But I went, we started seventh grade at David Marcus in Brownsville. Mm-hmm. And then we moved in the middle of the year. But my mother wanted us to finish off the year there. So we would travel back to David Marcus. And then I went from seventh grade to ninth grade. I made the SP, so I skipped eighth grade. So in ninth grade, I went to Winthrop Junior High School.
So what was it like growing up with your parents? In particular, your mother's story. Okay. So, what was it like growing up in that household? What are some of the things that you remember? First of all, did they speak Yiddish?
All the time.
Did they talk about the war and avoid speaking loudly so that you wouldn't really know what their past was? Did they avoid telling you the past when you were younger?
My mother didn't speak about it a lot. My father, he was very vocal about it. As you know, he did the Spielberg interview.
Right.
He also was called back to Germany in the 1960s to testify against the German officer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was a scary time for us because it was posted in the newspaper with our address, and my father was getting threatening phone calls.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
That's the one thing about standing up against these things. You take a lot of risks, but you have to. You've got to speak up against atrocity, about, injustice.
Yeah. Well,
You have to speak up against these things, even though it's scary. And we teach kids, young kids, all the time about standing up, to injustice.
yeah. Well, my father went to high schools, and he when they moved to Florida, went to high schools, and he spoke about his experiences. My mother did not speak about her experiences. She was in a labor camp. I think she worked for Siemens.
I see.
And she just wouldn't talk about what she went through. But my father was in Auschwitz, and he had the tattoo on his arm, and he very, very vocal about it. As a matter of fact, one day when we went to Florida, he made my children sit and watch his video from the Spielberg interview. Mm-hmm. He just wanted everybody to know, what he went through.
Did you ever see them crying over films, some of these?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
You avoid watching these films.
I try to avoid.
And why is that?
Because it just reminds me of what my parents went through, and it makes me cry. So it basically hurts my heart. But we used to hear them talking to their friends. As I said, they would get together. All the different couples would get together and talk about their experiences.
Do you think that you were raised differently from other
I do.
kids?
I do.
In what way?
We never had birthday parties.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it was because they were survivors. I think it was more because they were European and didn't really know too much of the American way. But I used to be very jealous, and my friends would have birthday parties, and we wouldn't have birthday parties. So that's just one of the things. My brother's bar mitzvah, he had the bar mitzvah with the cake and everything. It was my 13th birthday too. I was not recognized.
Wow.
Not at all, because I was a girl.
Yeah.
My father insisted girls don't have bar mitzvahs. And I changed that.
Is this an old tradition from Europe?
It's an old tradition from Europe because...
Were they religious?
My father studied to be a chazan.
Oh, okay.
So he basically was more religious than my mother was. But that changed also over the years because when my mother went back to work, it was very hard for her to keep kosher. And it changed over the years, and he accepted it. But at the beginning, he was really insistent upon everything. I mean, Passover, we went with the feather around the house, looking for chametz. We did all the traditions.
Right.
So
it's amazing that none of those traditions died out during the Holocaust. People weren't fed up and they said, I have enough of this. We want to move on. But no, they kept their traditions. They were resilient. These are traditions that are thousands of years old.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when it was said to me a few times, how after what happened to him, how could he still be so religious? How could he still believe in God for letting him go through that? And yet he became more religious after.
He became even more religious.
Yes, he became.
Some
even
people
more.
became less, and some people became more.
Yeah.
I think my parents became a little less religious. I think my dad was a little discouraged.
Yeah, that's what most people thought would happen.
He was discouraged because he would, this is his experience. I mean,
Right.
He lost his mother, his father, his sister, his 4-year-old brother, and his other brothers. He was the only one that made it out alive from a family of 8. And he used to tell me, I want you to grow up and you make your own decisions about, our faith. He says, but for me, he used to tell me, if there's a God, where was he?
That's what most people would think.
Yeah, where was he when we were all being
But my father didn't think
tortured,
like that.
abused, and killed?
Yeah, my father didn't think like that. As a matter of fact, one time I remember when I was in elementary school, I got up one day to do my homework. And my father came in, he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing my homework. He says, on Yom Kippur? I said, oh my God, I forgot. I totally forgot that it was Yom Kippur, and he was so angry that I was writing.
Wow.
That's how religious he was.
Yes. Wow. And what kind of food did your mom make?
Oh, she made all the.
Did she make all the Polish food?
She made all the food. She made the best stuffed cabbage, and she made the best chopped liver, and she made the best.
Yeah. I mean, how about pacha? Did you eat pacha?
Absolutely.
Oh
Well,
my
I didn't
God.
really like it, but she made it.
It was horrific. I wanted American food.
Yeah, well, it was a long time before we hardly ever went out to eat.
Yeah, same here. I don't ever remember going out to eat. My mother would make. This is what they knew. They knew Polish culture, and they
Right.
assimilated to those that lived in Morocco ate Moroccan food.
Right.
Those that lived in Shanghai ate Chinese food.
Absolutely.
But those that lived in Poland, which was the majority of the Jews, about 3 million of them, they ate Polish food. They brought it to wherever they
That's
went,
right.
and this is what they knew how to do, and they did it well. Because my mom made fantastic chopped liver. I got to say, I loved her chopped liver.
My mother too.
But the pacha thing, that was like horrific. And I said to my mom, I said, I want some American food. So in a panic, she went out to buy a shake and bake. And so we were raised on shake and bake. And that was to her American food.
Well, that's like we would come home from school for lunch. On those years, you could go home for lunch, and she'd make us pizza. What did she make? An English muffin with a little tomato sauce and a piece of cheese on top
Right.
of it. And that was the pizza
My
she
mother
made.
used to use Munster cheese, which was really good.
I love Munster cheese.
Yeah. When you put it in that little oven, it really comes out delicious. So, but they did their best.
They did their best. That's what I have to say.
You can't wrong them. They were so limited with resources, information, education.
Yeah, but they
But they had street smarts,
they had street smarts, and
and they
were,
knew how to run a business. I can tell you one
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. And they worked very, very hard. As I said, my father would walk miles to work so he could save the money and not have to pay for the train or the bus. And they saved and they saved. They finally bought their first house, as
Wow.
I said. And then after that, they bought a different house. But the neighborhood changed. They bought a different house. And then they finally bought something in Florida.
Wow. This
So
is
they,
great
you know-
financial advice for those that want to buy a house. Stop taking the train. It's actually costly, isn't it?
It is.
It adds up,
costly.
especially in Uber.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
but so they bought a house. They went. You said they moved to Florida.
They moved to Florida. They moved to Boca Raton.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's pretty much a Jewish ghetto.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
like certain spots where you'll find Jewish ghettos.
Right, and for years the 6 months there they were the snowbirds. They 6 months there, 6 months here, and then finally they lived there full time.
Yeah.
So and that's where they lived their the rest of their lives.
Right. What? So you've had friends, and I'm sure you still have friends who are also second generation. Do you meet with them? Do you share some stories?
I actually don't have too many friends that are second generation.
Well, you know me.
I know you, yes, I absolutely know you. But the friends they all dispersed all over. They went all over.
Right.
So and those friends were basically children of my parents' friends.
Right.
So
Yeah, which is not exactly the same.
Right.
Not all of them you want to be friends with.
right.
So my grandmother's maiden name is Smolar. Smoler. I think it's spelled the same way.
No, they spell it AR.
AR.
But that's my married name.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah.
So what is the background of your husband? I mean, where does he have family? Where did he have family in Europe? Even if he left before the war, did he have family in Europe in Poland?
My father-in-law was from Poland, but I don't really know where he was
Right.
from.
Okay.
But he was from Poland. Yeah, but he was young when he went to Cuba.
So let's backtrack a little bit about your parents. What cities did they come from? What parts of Europe?
My father came from Benjin, which they call it.
And this is Poland.
Yeah, they call it Bendin now, but it was spelled Benjin. And my mother came from Vilna, which is, they say now Vilnius, which was from Lithuania. She was on the border of Russia and Poland.
Right.
So she spoke Polish and Russian. My father spoke a lot of languages too.
Right. My dad knew like 5 languages. He had to learn Polish, Russian, Hebrew, Yiddish. And how many is that so far?
That was 4, I believe.
Right.
And English.
Well, they didn't know English then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, my parents, as I said, they wanted to assimilate. They went to school. As soon as my brother and I went to school, they went to school to learn English. My father needed it for his job, and my mother just wanted to learn English. And as soon as my brother and I learned English, that was it. We didn't speak Yiddish in the house anymore. We wanted to practice our English.
Did you ever want to talk to young people and tell them your family story?
I did.
And you have?
I did.
And where did you do that?
I did. I didn't get a chance.
You didn't get a chance, but you did want to tell the story.
I did want. As a matter of fact, when I was teaching, I started to mentor new teachers, and I brought the film from my father's interview, and I would talk to classes about the Holocaust, and I would show them the film of my father's interview.
Wow.
So, and they were very interested. And we're talking about 6th graders. Because I taught elementary school, and they sat and they watched and they were very absorbed in it. So that was my way of sharing that.
What is your hope for the future?
My hope for the future. That's a very, very deep
Where do you
question.
see this country in 5 years from now?
Oh my God! You don't want to get
Think
into
positive.
politics.
No, without the politics
you don't
part.
want to get into politics.
Let's leave the politics out. But where would you like for it to go? What would you like to see different?
I would like to see the less fighting.
Right.
That's what I would like to see. I have family members who don't agree with me politically, and I don't agree with them politically, and we try to avoid the conversation all the time.
Right.
So I would like to see people who get along and don't have to fight about it. I would like to see more humanity. I definitely would like to see more humanity. People don't care about other people. I mean, look what just happened.
More empathy.
Yeah, look what just happened in Texas.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people went to help, but there are a lot of people who just turn their backs.
It's met with a shrug.
Absolutely.
You know, people. Well, there are a lot of good people out there.
There are.
Let's put it this way: there's more good people than people with bad ideas. It's just that who takes the action steps, right?
Right.
It's one thing to think about things, but it's another thing to actually help people. During the Holocaust, a very small percentage of people rescued Jews and hid them and fed them. The majority felt, bad. They were sympathetic to what was happening to the Jews, but they didn't want to participate.
Right.
They didn't want to collaborate. They just wanted to be left alone. And unfortunately, that's the silent majority. People just want to be left alone. They don't want to be involved.
They don't want to be involved.
They don't want to take any risks.
Right.
And it's those risk takers, actually, that make the difference,
Yes.
Thank God there's more of them than people with bad ideas.
Right.
However, the ones with the bad ideas make a lot of noise, and they get a lot of media attention.
And that's what's going on now.
Right. And so we think it's the majority, but it really isn't. However, it's very influential to a lot of other people, and it can create a majority. And that's the truth. So
That is the truth. Absolutely.
Shelly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This was fun. It was quick. It was fun. It was painless.
All right. A matter of opinion.
Yeah, it was painless. I felt nothing, honestly. And I'm so glad that you shared some of your experiences growing up with survivors. And you're kind of like a survivor too, because you were born in a DP camp in a way.
Right.
So you're kind of like a semi-survivor. You were still over there. So it's quite a story. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody's time for joining us here on HMTV. Be sure to listen to all of our podcasts. We have some great stories and great history as well. Thank you so much for joining us here today on HMTV. My name is Bernie Furshpan, the host of Raised by Survivors. Until next time.